Morning and welcome to Houston Newsmakers. Back after a week off for the British Open, and there was so much to talk about while we were away. But with politics these days, it's the gift that keeps on giving, or depending on how you look at it, the pimple that won't go away. Either way, we'll delve into it this morning with our good friends, Dr. Mark Jones, a fellow in political science at the Baker Institute, the chair in Latin American Studies, and professor of political science at Rice University. Gary Polland, a former Harris County GOP chair and current editor of the Texas Conservative Review, which focuses on what the name implies, which is conservative politics.
That's right.
In Texas. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything happening recently? I don't think a lot going on here. Mark, I want to start with you. At this point, as a political science professor, this has got to be manna from heaven.
It's manna from heaven, but sometimes it gets to be too much, where there's so much going on here in the state with a special session, where we have the Senate going with gangbusters to get legislation out, and then President Trump keeping us on our toes every day with tweets and other statements.
Gary, there's a lot that's going on in politics these days, and in your party especially, where there now seems to be a lot more factions than we ever used to be able to identify.
Well, it's interesting. The Republican Party in Washington was unified when President Obama, Democratic president, was there. Now that we have a Republican president, it looks like we have lots of factions, as you correctly pointed out. And one of the challenges that the leadership faces in Washington is bringing those various factions together. It's fascinating, and I'm kind of distressed because I had hoped that we'd actually get some things done in Washington. And by the way, I'm one of the ones who think that the Democrats should have a seat at the table too.
Well, that's a good thing. You and John McCain on the same note there.
We agree.
Let's talk about Austin for a second. The governor called a special session. He had some business he wanted to take care of. Governor Abbott says there's 20 things that he's really adamant about seeing passed. Are we talking about good politics, a waste of time, or maybe both?
Well, I think there certainly are some issues that are priority for the governor that didn't get passed during the regular session that he's put down on the special session agenda. There also are some things that are more political theater, such as the bathroom bill, which is probably going to never go anywhere, but where the Senate and the state are spending a whole lot of time looking at that issue. It's out of the Senate now, it's headed to the House, but the House is likely to be its grave, where it's going to sit in the State Affairs Committee and never actually make it to the floor. So in the end, we're probably not going to have a bathroom bill.
Good politics going on there in Austin, though, with this special session?
There is some good politics going on. I think that Governor Abbott has decided what he wants out of the legislature that he didn't get in the regular session, so he's pushing for it. And he's very active. So he's had meetings with Republican representatives, Republican senators, and told them that basically, you don't support me on my agenda, then I'm not going to be supporting you. And so this is kind of similar to what you had in Washington. You have some factions in the Republican Party that don't always agree. I disagree with Dr. Jones. I think the privacy bill will pass, and primarily pass because of Governor Abbott's interference, because he has made it pretty clear to key Republicans in the House, you don't support me on this bill, I'm going to support someone against you in the primary. And if you look at the demographics of the Republican Party and how the vote goes, it's overwhelming support for the Privacy Act. And I would point out that even though we call it a distraction, that the privacy bills came from Annise Parker's overreach in Houston, which activated the conservatives in the state who really had had enough of this push of an alternative lifestyle agenda. And they decided they were going to fight. And that's what caused it. And so that's the end result. If Houston had not gotten involved, I don't think we'd be talking about this.
Mark, you agree with that?
Well, I don't think it's going to pass. I think Joe Strauss, we're talking about factionalism. We're really seeing the factions in the Texas Republican Party come out right now, where we have the movement conservative or Tea Party wing that's led by Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and then the centrist conservative wing led by Speaker Strauss in the House. I think the Speaker is going to hold firm on the bathroom bill and not let it get to the floor. I think Gary's right, though. If it gets to the floor, it will pass, because a majority of Republicans on the floor will feel compelled to vote for it. But I don't think the Speaker is going to let it get there, so I don't think we're going to have a bathroom bill when the session ends in the middle of August.
And talking about that, the difference in there, we have a soundbite talking from the speakers and the governor, very different in terms of how they look at this bathroom bill. Listen to this.
I just believe it is not in the best interest of Texas to pass that bill. I will use whatever influence I have to try to avoid the mistake that North Carolina made and ultimately had to at least partially back up on. No other state in the United States has followed North Carolina's example.
What I've heard from North Carolina is they have not faced the dire economic circumstances that a lot of people asserted. But second, yes, Bill, I'm going to sign all 20 of the pieces of legislation that reached my desk, knowing this, and that is there is a reason why just last week Texas was proclaimed as being #1 in the nation for job creation for the last month and for the last year. And that's because the Texas model attracts businesses to come to Texas and to grow in Texas, and that model has nothing whatsoever to do with these laws that are on the session call right now.
In spite of that, it looks like Speaker Strauss is really not going to, he's going to try to do what he can to keep this from going anywhere. I've heard that there is really a movement afoot within the Republican Party to get Speaker Strauss out.
There is interest in among the strong conservatives to send Speaker Strauss packing because he's an obstructionist in terms of the conservative agenda.
Let's talk about the politics in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, Austin looks great compared to that, I'll tell you.
Either one of you see what's going on in Washington and look at it and think that this is a good thing?
No, I think it's a train wreck. Nothing's getting done in Washington by either party. I mean, in this problem that we've had, Cambrell, it's been going on for a while. Because you remember when President Obama got elected, he told the Republicans, I won, you lost. The Republicans' response was, well, our major legislative goal is to beat you in 4 years. Didn't work together at all. And it continued. It happened under Bush, and now it's happening under Trump. And what we're missing, Cambrell, is we used to get a break in politics between the elections and the next election. So there was actually time to govern. And it was actually okay to talk to the other party, to be friends with the other party, to socialize with the other party. That's all gone in Washington now. It's toxic.
Is there a move afoot that can be taken place that will change that dynamic at all?
Unfortunately, I think as Gary mentions, we're moving in the wrong direction in that respect. That is, it's become more toxic and the relationships have frayed more and more every day. We're long past the era where after a couple weeks or a week of fighting over political matters, Tip O'Neill, the Democratic Speaker of the House, and Ronald Reagan, then the president, would sit down in the Oval Office and have drinks and talk. Those types of personal relationships are effectively gone, and I think we're just getting into a more and more polarized era, one that President Trump certainly exacerbates rather than ameliorates.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what his role is in all of this, what kind of role he plays in trying to make sure that the Republican agenda gets through, because right now there's not much of that happening at this point. Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. We're going to talk about that coming up right after this break. Stay with us.